Why do they want us to eat bugs? I just don't get this. I've been trying to work this out in my head. Why do the people who seem to want to govern our lives on everything want us to eat bugs? I mean, we're at the top of the food chain. At least that's as I understood it. We're at the top of the food chain, not down there with the anteaters and our tongues sticking out going, licking up whatever's creepy crawlies are on the floor. This is absurd. And yet, of course, this idea is being fed to us, if you excuse the pun. It's fed to us, drip, drip, drip. They do this all the time. They tell us what's going to happen. We just sit there and we take it, and then they implement it. So what would be on the menu? I even had a little fantasy menu of my own, thinking, could this work down at the Cricketers Arms? So we could have Death Watch beetle salad. That could be quite pleasant. Locust sandwich with a creme fly filling, of course. Drizzled dragonfly with a sprinkling of crushed red ants. Tasty. Or what about dung beetle souffle? Mind you, we've got a shortage of eggs at the moment, so maybe we can't do the souffle. Couldn't do an omelette either. Pudding wise, I came up with the idea of a chocolate coated hornet's larvae. Oh, sounds delicious, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. So why do they want us to do this? Well, according to one national paper, there is a reason. Oh yes, apparently there are 2,000 edible insects worldwide, and these include things like mealworms. Yeah, nice play on word there, thanks. And crickets. Right. It's a sustainable option. There's that word again, sustainable. Everything that's got the word sustainable makes me suspicious. Very suspicious. It's like the word smart. Everything with the word smart makes me suspicious. Smart motorways, smart phones, smart meters. Anything that's got smart in it is well, it's rubbish. Sustainable is the same thing. Apparently, if we go down this route of making bugs, we can save 64 million tonnes of carbon dioxide. Ah, that's what it is. It's, again, all to do with this stupid idea that the world is warming up and that it's going to be a catastrophe if we don't do something about it. This man-made global warming. Well, the more that we look into this, the more we realise that this is not a truth. This is made up. This is just there to frighten us, to get us into 15-minute cities, to make sure that we're all huddled together, to make us have horrible lives with digital IDs and digital currency. It's all part of the same plan. However, a few more facts here. Insect farms only produce 4% of the current emissions against traditional farms that produce cows and pigs and poultry. I don't care. I really don't care. That has also less land and less water is required. That's not the point. As I said before, we're at the top of the food chain, not down at the bottom. If we'd wanted to eat bugs, I'm sure that man, when he was a hunter-gatherer, when he was a primitive farmer, would have been doing exactly this. If he wanted to eat bugs, if that was something that was in our DNA, that was in our nature to eat, we would have been doing it. But if I remember rightly, the hunter-gatherers, just as the name suggests, were hunting animals and gathering nuts and berries. They weren't running around the countryside with their mouths wide open trying to swallow as many butterflies as they could. No. Bugs, it's just not natural. Yes, there may be 2,000 edible insects, as they said, across the world wide, but does that mean that we have to have them? The trouble is, of course, we don't get a say, even though we never voted for it. I could completely understand if this was something that was put to the population and said, look, OK, there are troubles in the world at the moment. We believe that global warming's coming because we're following the science. Well, you know what happened when we follow the science? Catastrophe, injury and death. So that's probably why they didn't want to say it. But anyway, we didn't vote for it. If people want to eat bugs, that's fine. But it's not that's going to happen, is it? We know that they're going to get things like crickets. They're going to be huge numbers of these creatures. They're going to be mashed up, turned into some sort of white powder, and then fed into the food chain in some sort of bulking agent or something derived as protein that can go into processed foods and even milk and cheese, I've heard. And apparently the Welsh are actually considering this, the Welsh government, not the people, are thinking, well, we're going to put this into children's school dinners. Heaven forbid. Now, I would like to see the people who've come up with this great idea, their family and friends, for 10 years or so, an experimental period to see how it is they get on with eating bugs. I would like to see what happens. Is there a high risk of perhaps poisons or cancers? I understand the exoskeleton of certain bugs is not actually conducive for human consumption. Who's going to do the experiments on that and prove it over time? But no, we'll just have them insidiously put into the food chain and nobody will know. And of course it won't say this wonderful food stuff contains bugs, will it? There won't be a picture of a happy cricket going, hey, a bug inside. No, this is going to be pushed through the back door and we won't know anything about it unless we make a stand. It's all on the presumption, it seems to me, that climate change is this terrible, nasty thing that's happening down. But if you listen to both sides of the science, both people, the scientists, it seems to me, are not actually saying it's catastrophic, that actually the seas aren't rising at the levels that everybody thinks. 100 years it may have gone up by a foot. Well, that's 100 years. We could actually build a wall to stop the sea from coming in. The heat is only going to rise about 1 and 1.5 degrees centigrade in 100 years. That's a long time. There is no need to rush in these ridiculous ideas. We've been eating quality food, meat and green foods for generations, thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. We know what's good for us and we know what works. We don't really know what happens if we start eating bugs and make just a knee-jerk change, a kick in the wind, if you like. So I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to make sure that I complain about this because I don't think it's right. I don't think we should do. We didn't vote for this, and any government that brings this in, I think, will have a good kicking at the next election. What do you think?